Hey folks, I recorded this netcast a couple weeks ago, set it to upload before I went off to the International Medieval Congress, and left my office, and apparently it did not upload, which is why it is arriving a couple of weeks late. So here it is, enjoy.
Ha, ha.
Swords, feel the wars, fighting my blood down to the core. Warriors from medieval age, fear the reign of night brigades. Crusades into the room, moving through the temples and tombs. You scared and place, prepare to face Professor Awesome and the minions of doom. 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 Professor Awesome and the minions of doom.
Hello minions, and welcome back to Professor Awesome and the Minions of Doom. So today I just got done posting my grades for my class. It's been a really, I'm busy preparing for the International Medieval Congress in Kalamazoo, which will begin in 2 days. And it is the big gathering of medieval scholars, so I've had to prepare my essays for that, my presentation for that, while at the same time preparing dozens of other things. And so I am mentally spent, and right now I'm here in my office just trying to look for some joy in my life after every bit of it has been ground out by reading various essays, some of which were pretty good. I have to confess, the final exams I got this time were pretty good, but there were some of them which really sapped my will to live, and I know many of my colleagues are feeling the same way. And so in the time that, rather than addressing something really serious, and since I haven't done a netcast for a while because of these other things I've been busy with, I decided to answer an important question that I get all the time. And I know this is a very important question because of the not just the frequency with which I get it, but the emotion that goes into people who asked me this question. And the question is, why do you have Rainbow Dash on your desk? So let me tell you the story of Rainbow Dash. By the way, I really don't know much about My Little Pony. So if this is not Rainbow Dash, I want you to gather together all of your angry emails, tweet it, all your tweets ready to correct me. You just gather those all together and put them in a little ball and squeeze them down into a tight little pill and swallow them, because I don't care. So I've been told this is Rainbow Dash, I think, not Rainbow Bright, which is another character. So I tend to believe that. And so here's the tale of how I ended up with Rainbow Dash. And Rainbow Dash is her significance to me. I think My Little Ponies are female. We have to go back to a Dragon Con, and we have this every year within Dragon Con. We run this academic conference, the Comics and Popular Arts Conference, and it's a peer-reviewed conference where you submit your papers for review, and then what we kind of do is we essentially act as brokers, where we put together a conference, we put together sessions, and then we ask the various tracks, hey, are you interested in having an academic session on this? We've got some we've got some legit scholars who are interested in coming to talk. And so often they'll take us up on that. And last year, I think it was, one of the other organizers got really sick. And he was supposed to chair a session. So I ended up taking over some of his sessions that he was supposed to chair. And one of them was a session in animation. And the session in animation, so I'm going to go take it over, and Dragon Con happens over Labor Day weekend. And so because of that, there are always people who drop out of sessions. I think we have a little bit more dropouts at the last minute just because people mistake how possible it's going to be to travel on Labor Day weekend, or they mistake how difficult it will be to get a hotel room in Atlanta to come deliver this academic paper. And so we'll have, it's not uncommon to have a couple people drop here or there. In this particular session, we had 2 people drop, which left 1 paper, which I didn't know anything about. So last minute, the guy is sick, and so I'm told I have to go to this session and chair the session about a paper I don't know anything about. So I go and I look at the abstract that was presented, and the abstract is interesting. It has to do with Peter Beagle's The Last Unicorn. And the scholar who's presenting this is an expert on Silk Road economies. So, and it's just the abstract, so I don't know the details of what the paper is going to be about. So I assume that it's going to be something about how the animation in the film version of The Last Unicorn is in some way influenced by, depictions, silk or other kinds of depictions of unicorns. I'm assuming that it's something like this. So we get into there, and in Dragon Con you always get a mixed audience. I like to tell people it's one for smart, for smart fans who tend to come to ours, which are people who don't have an academic background, but they're not dum-dums. And so, in this particular case, we had these, and so we'll have a mixed group, and so it's not uncommon to have. I mean, it's not just not uncommon. Always, you have people in cosplay. So you have someone dressed as Captain America, someone dressed as some anime character I've never heard of, etc., etc. And this is pretty similar, except this is entirely made up. The audience is like almost entirely bronies and a term I did not know, Pegasistas. These are the My Little Pony fans. And I realize, these people who came to this thought that this was going, since it's an animation and they saw the words horse and unicorn in here, they thought that this is about My Little Ponies. They're going to be terribly disappointed by this presentation. So, and because there's a sort of a singular fan culture here, it was way more like the behavior you would see in a convention than an academic conference. Normally these sorts of sessions draw people who are maybe fans of that thing, but also of various other, maybe in this case, other kinds of animation. Not in this case. It was all one monolithic fan culture. And so all the sort of oddities of Brony and Pegasista culture were there. Things like laughing as if you're neighing, for example, and things along these lines. And that's okay. I've chaired sessions before where things got a little out of hand because the audience didn't quite know how to take an academic paper, but I'm kind of feeling for the presenter. She begins presenting, and I think she had 1 or 2 slides on The Last Unicorn. She was there to talk about My Little Pony, which I don't even remember for sure if that was even mentioned in her abstract. I certainly didn't get the impression that the entire thing was going to be about My Little Pony. And it didn't have much to do with Silk Road economies either. But she's giving this paper, and I'm just, and she and the audience are feeding off of one another. And I am the one, rather than thinking like, these poor fans, they don't know what they're getting into. I'm the one who's the outsider here, and I'm the one who keeps interrupting their My Little Pony love fest to say, like, questions like, okay, so what does this representation of this tell us about the way that we're supposed to conceive My Little Ponies, in the social structure of this space, or whatever my stupid questions were. Actually, they weren't stupid questions, but for this audience, they didn't care. They actually didn't care to hear her academic take on it, to be honest, and every time they knocked her off of the academic route, she happily went with them wherever they were going, to this other place. And I remember leaving there thinking that was the worst disaster of a session I've ever been to. And I enjoyed sort of telling the story about being sort of surrounded by what was to me an alien fan culture. And, to be clear, I'm a medieval scholar who is part of a group that organizes an academic conference at DragonCon every year. That's pretty nerdy. This was beyond for me, and I enjoyed telling this tale to various people. At one point, maybe 2 days later, I was telling the tale to some people, and in the middle of telling it, I realized, wait a second. I'm the outsider here. I'm the nerd. I'm the one who doesn't fit. I'm the dork. And so I came back and told this tale to my classes, who thought it was fun, and I think they enjoyed first my sort of characterization of the Bronies and the Pegasisters as really dorks, and then the turn when I realized, no, the dork there, the one who's not understanding the social cues, is me. And so after telling that story, some of my students in the local big box store, they saw these banks for sale, and they gave them to me. They gave one to me to essentially, remind me of the time that I was the real dork at Dragon Con. So, hopefully, I will not have at the straight up medieval academic conference with no cosplay, no sort of fandoms, things of that kind of nature at Kalamazoo this year. But if I do, maybe I will also be gifted with another statue that commemorates my foolishness. So that's all for today, and keep on minioning. That's a stupid catchphrase. You know what I mean.